Mike Peace Wood Turning back at you with another video project. This is a little quick project. I'm going to make a shaving brush. I've done one of these before. I'll have a link to the end of this video. We're going to fast forward through some of this. I've got a nice piece of mountain mahogany furnished to me by Reed Gray, aka Robo Hippie, several years ago. Very nice wood. It's got quite a story behind it. My daughter-in-law wanted me to make her a shaving brush, and she went out and bought this synthetic knot. It's 1 inch compared to a Badger. She's real concerned about animals, so she felt better with a synthetic knot. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to mount this thing, turn it between centers. So I tighten up between centers, get ready to turn to rough it round, and I start off with a skew on this particular one. You know, spindle rough and gouge work just fine. I'm comfortable with a skew, and I get a nice planing cut. Taking these peeling cuts and then following up with a planing cut. Now I'm going to take it off. I've already put on a tenon, so I'm taking out the live centers, putting on a chuck. I'm using my 35mm record power jaws because it will grab this thing, that tenon, very securely, so I can do the drilling and turning operation. You can see I got a flat spot, so I've got a little more rounding off to do, and I'll catch up with that as we go along. And you can see I'm doing that now with this spindle rough and gouge. Keep in mind, this spindle rough and gouge is only for spindle work. Don't ever use it on a bowl. It's not for roughing out a bowl because it's not built for it. And I lay it on top to see if I get any vibration. That gives me a quick feel for whether or not it's round or not. And you can go in either direction with a spindle rough and gouge, as you can see here as I change direction. And well, I get to use the whole shape of the cutting edge. It saves me trips back to the grinder to sharpen the tool. As we know, if it's almost sharp, it'll almost cut. So I've got just a little bit of taper on the front end. Now I'm getting ready to drill a hole. I turned one earlier and the hole was too big, so this is my second one. I used a 7/8 inch, and then I'm gonna, as you see here shortly, I'll be tuning it up just a little bit with a scraper, but keep the speed down below 500. Turning in grain hardwood, you don't go too fast. So I'm sizing it, get a feel for how much I need to take off the sides, and go just a bit deeper, as you can see here. So now I remove that. I get my box scraper and reposition my tool rest, of course, so I can cut on center. It's a traditional scraper, so I lift the handle up just slightly as I come down the wall to try to keep it parallel, and take off just small amounts. And then I'll do a couple of trial fits to make sure that brush is going to fit properly when I finally put some epoxy glue to hold it in there. Doesn't take long. Alright, now I'm taking a previous shaving brush, one I use every day actually, and I'm marking off the features, and then I'm going to start with a spindle gouge, and then I decided I'd switch to initially cut this bead with a 3/4 inch skew. It's just nice getting those V cuts. This is a really easy cut to make. You know, for those of y'all, don't let a skew scare you off, because it does a great job on V cuts, better than any other tool. Now I switch to a 3/8 inch spindle gouge as I start shaping it back, rounding off the bead just a little bit. And now I start rounding it off again to finish up where I should have done earlier on making this perfectly round. But I'm starting a taper. I like, instead of a flat taper, I want a nice slight gradual curve on this. This mountain mahogany is just a really dense hardwood. As it turns out, I didn't size this exactly right. Now I'm doing a little sanding up right here. And I use a little wet sanding, and I go through all the grits. And okay, for the finer grits, I'm going to switch to Ken Rizza's Wonder Weaves. A lot like Abernet's, have a whole lot cheaper. It's got all these holes, and I think I've talked about this in an earlier video, so it doesn't trap the dust. It gets to go on through.
Have not used it a lot, but the little I have used it, I do like it.
Now it's time to reverse chuck this so I can finish off the bottom, remove any damage. And I find that if I wrap a little tape for this particular project, I can hold it, I bottom it out and put it in the same jaws I was using. It's not the strongest hold, but I'm going to bring up some tailstock support initially to hold it while I get rid of some of this waste wood on the very end. I'm going to initially start off with a spindle gouge, put a little chamfer on the end, and then I'm going to switch to a skew to get a nice clean cut. Still got some little tool marks I've got to remove there on that handle taper. Now I come in with a skew and do some nice planing cuts on that taper. This will make it a little easier for some finish sanding. And now I'm using a little, after I finish sanding, I'm putting on some sanding sealer and doing some wet sanding. Now I come back, do that final flattening of the back with my skew. Gives me a nice smooth finish. I'm putting a little bit of a chamfer on the end just to give it a nice look. I'm not going to round it over. I want those sharp, crisp edges. Now I've got just that little nib at the end. Here's where I've got to be really careful. Reposition my tool rest. And I'm using a small 1/4 inch round skew, and I'm going straight in, so the pressure is in. If I had to keep pressuring hard on the side, there's a good chance I might dislodge this. But going straight in, using this as a scraper seems to work real well. And now I'm testing it for flatness, because that's part of the design of this thing. I want it to be able to stand on its end. Round might look nice, but for me it wouldn't be as functional. I'm going to put a little detail feature on the end.
Okay, I've got it finished except for gluing and finishing, and I'm going to use my favorite Minwax antique oil. I'm going to use probably 4 coats. This is such a hard wood. Actually, 3 coats probably be plenty, and I think that'll protect the finish just fine.
Okay, I decided that mountain mahogany was a little too heavy, so I picked a piece of Osage orange, turned one a little smaller, and as you can see, I turned a little bit of feature on the bottom. Hope you enjoyed it. Y'all stay safe. Come on back here. I rarely do voiceovers, so I'd appreciate any feedback you've got on the quality of sound or this approach. If you like this video, crush the like button. Y'all stay safe. Come on back here.